MP Louise Mensch is on the Culture, Media and Sports Select Committee. We've seen much of her today doing the questioning, and she joins us now. Ms Mensch, first of all, was it at all intimidating questioning Rupert and James Murdoch? And that sounds a naive question.
Not at all.
You know, it is the most powerful media man in the world.
Yes, it was absolutely terrifying. It was absolutely terrifying, but I think I went last, and as you saw, there was a major interruption before I asked my questions. So whatever we have been expecting, that was a reset. And I think we were all probably, I can only speak for myself, I was extremely nervous before the questioning started. But then as testimony progressed, we were just listening to the answers and trying to get at the truth, and that's what we were concentrating on.
What did we get from today from Murdochs and Brooks?
I think we've got their version of events, and I think we want to go back and analyse it very carefully. I was very surprised, I suppose, to hear that there have been failures of corporate governance at News Corp such that the most senior executives apparently weren't told about this ongoing wrongdoing, and I think perhaps that was the thing that most surprised me, and the tendency of my questions to Mr Murdoch if he would now undertake a complete review of practices in his newsrooms. Which,
of course, he said he hadn't done so, but he promised that he would. Didn't you ever just want to throw your hands up to Miss Brooks and say, you must have known, and if you didn't know, you're incompetent for not knowing?
Well, I think the thrust of the questions was that they probably ought to have known and ought not to have relied on other people, and that's indeed why I said to Mr James Murdoch that if I were him, I would go back and read the entire file myself. Under the circumstances, I'd take a few days to do it. But I have to say, I cannot fault either the Murdochs or Mrs Brooks's extensive answers to the committee today. They didn't hide behind legal privilege at any point, and they did give us very full and frank answers. Their questions remain, but they nevertheless answer the questions.
You see, that's the point. Do you think the committee did its work well today?
I believe so, because I think we asked very searching questions in exhaustive detail about the nature of the payments, about the differences between them, and we received the answers, which I think do leave the questions hanging out there.
Right, the questions are hanging out there. Which question for you is still unknown as a result of what took place today?
The question for me that's still unknown is why were the serious wrongdoing at the News of the World not passed up the chain of command to James and Rupert Murdoch? Because if I were in their position, knowing the reputation of my company, I would want those answers right now, and I would be incredibly distressed to learn that I hadn't got them. That is the question that I have.
And what about the question of the body language between the two men? I mean, you saw them, again, close up and personal. It seemed that Mr Murdoch, long pauses, very firm answers when they came. Yes, no, I didn't do it, I didn't know about it. James Murdoch sounding sometimes like a management textbook.
James Murdoch was well versed and was close to the action. Mr Rupert Murdoch he's 80 years old, I think, is one of the first things to say, and he wanted to consider his answers. As a matter of fact, I thought the body language between the two men was quite tender. I noticed James Murdoch putting his hand on his father's at one point, and Mr Murdoch said, he's telling me not to gesticulate, but it looked to me like a gesture of comfort. Right. And you could see that family relationship.
You've been an MP for how long?
I was elected last year.
Exactly. So new to the game in the sense of the political beast of the Murdochs and the relationships between press and politics. Has anything changed?
Well, a week is a long time in politics, and if that old saw was ever proved true, it's been over the last couple of weeks. I think we've seen a cataclysmic change. So you wouldn't go to lunch with Mr Murdoch or go to a summer party? I would be very happy to go to lunch with Mr Murdoch, Mr Dacre, with the editor of any national newspaper, but the difference between now and this time 3 months ago is that if I had and took such a meeting, I would declare it. And give a grade today for the scandal overall, A, B, C or D, in terms of what we learned. Oh my goodness, I have to grade it. It is a grade A scandal, but I think that what we have seen today is the beginnings of fixing of the problem, letting some sunshine in on the corporate culture, hopefully not just at News International, but across the tabloid press in this country.